In multiple dog households, it's very important to practice differentiation. This is basically when you want to be able to give cues to your dog and then being able to tell apart who it is that you're actually talking to. Body language when handling is incredibly important, especially when you're working on differentiation. What I'm saying with my voice is not necessarily as important as to what I'm saying with my body when it comes to what my dogs are observing and how they're responding. I'm going to show you what I mean when I am working two Malinois at the same time and getting them to differentiate when I want one of them to come into my heel versus when I want the other one to stay back. So my body is going to divide in two. The right side of my body is going to be talking to Gray Fox and the left side of my body is going to be talking to Sora. Let's start by calling Gray Fox first. So with my left hand, I ask Sora to stay while keeping my left foot also squared off. I got Gray Fox to come into that right hand side by luring him with my right side and moving my right foot back to signal that I wanted him to come into that space. I'm going to move Gray Fox back by luring him with my right hand and taking a step forward with my right foot. My left hand and my left foot stayed put, which signaled to Sora that she was staying back while this all was happening. This is a good example of me communicating two things at once. My left hand is luring Sora behind me, and since Gray Fox tried to break to follow Sora, I kept my right hand towards Gray Fox to get him to stay put back on the Kato, and he reset himself beautifully. Just like Gray, I'm luring Sora back by taking that step forward with my left foot and luring with my left hand. Since my main purpose of the session was to work on differentiation, I really didn't mind that much that Gray Fox ended up breaking his place. Eventually, he ended up coming back. He's a teenager, it's not a big deal. I just went ahead and rewarded Sora and simply called Gray Fox to come back and start the game over again. Alright, so I really want you to pay attention to my body language for this next round. It's basically the same thing. I ended up adding a little circle just for a little bit of movement since obviously they're Malinois and they like to move. But just as before, I tell Sora to stay put first with my left hand, and then I lure Gray Fox with my right, opening the right side of my body to signal him that I want him to come into my space. Versus with Sora, I am staying squared off with that left to say, hey, you don't need to move, just hang out. While the majority of my focus is on Gray Fox with having him perform this little with me and his little circles, I am still sporadically rewarding Sora for maintaining her place. Notice that the left side of my body is still kind of squared off towards that Kato, which is important because here, while I'm working with Gray Fox, I gave Sora a treat and she dropped it and she ended up breaking the behavior. But while I'm still focusing on Gray Fox, notice how Sora read my body language beautifully and reset herself right back onto that Kato. The primary way that dogs collect information from us is through our body language. So as handlers, it is our responsibility to prioritize that when it comes to any type of our training. Notice that when Gray Fox broke, just like earlier, I maintained that pressure towards him with the right side of my body. And same as Sora earlier, he went ahead and reset himself and went back onto the Kato. While I am using the left side of my body and taking away some of the pressure to lure Sora into working with me. This is something that I often don't see people actually practice in multiple dog households. But it is something that is imperative to work on proper communication. The way that we communicate with our dogs when we're working them solo is very different than the way that we communicate when we are working them in groups. Our dogs are trying their very best day to day and observe our body language to try to understand what it is that we're asking them to do. Us taking the time to put some context and making their lives a little easier through this is incredibly important. So make time for it. Happy training.